After a season mostly dominated by returning drivers, the mass promotion to F2 and the arrival of the likes of Tuukka Taponen, Rafa Camara and Ugochukwu will make this upcoming F3 season all about the rookie class. Hello and welcome fellow motorsports fans. It is time for my F3 preview where I'll run you through all of the teams and drivers and predict the inter-team battles. If this is your first time on the channel, the way we usually do this is by ordering the teams according to the strength of their respective driver lineups, entirely ignoring the expected car performance while doing so. With a new chassis this season, the team dynamics may be different anyway, but we all know there is a good chance of Prema, ART and Trident dictating the show at the front. And because just ranking teams 1 to 10 is too much guesswork, I've grouped them into tiers for you as well. So without further ado, the lowest tier. This tier name really is self-explanatory if you ask me. AIX is a mess of an operation. After a somewhat ambitious lineup last year, they have really dropped the ball this time around. Although they also happen to be the only team with just 2 confirmed drivers at the time of recording. Jonas Reed filled the last seat in pre-season testing, but I'd be very surprised to see him leave ELMS for this dodgy project. Javier Sagrera may have been the reigning Eurocup 3 champion for a couple of months, a decision that has been overturned recently in favor of Christian Ho, in case you missed it. But given his massive experience advantage, he has never been the most convincing frontrunner anyway. He still looks like a really reasonable signing, especially when compared to teammate Nicola Marangeli. The Italian may have been on the junior ladder in the past, with little to no success I might add, but has been competing in the 3rd tier of GT3 racing over the last couple of seasons. I haven't watched IGTO at all last year, but he didn't even impress me there in 2023, so I am really not expecting anything from the man, and the decision to take on this project in the first place is rather odd if you ask me. Either way, a win for Sagrera with little to no potential for the squad as a whole in my book, unfortunately. Fortunately though, AIX is the only team in this tier. I've dubbed the next tier slightly dodgy because both of these lineups have got an obvious flaw to them. In the case of Dams, this comes down to the uninspiring promotion of Nicola Lacorte, who would have done quite well with another season of Fracas in my opinion, as well as the mediocre nature of Matthias Zagazator on this high level of competition. Not to say the Peruvian is too bad for the gig by any means, but I think even as a returning driver it is clear he will not be a frontrunner, no matter the car really. Christian Ho, the aforementioned new Eurocup 3 champion, is by far the brightest spot of this lineup. While it is a shame that he evidently could not afford to stay with Campos, he absolutely belongs in F3 this season, and I do hope this new team can give him the equipment for a breakout drive or two. It almost pains me to put High-Tech in this tier, but they've had it coming. Part of it is definitely the frustration of taking Gerard G's money over Timek Karchik's ability, both competing for the squad in GB3 last season, and there is zero case to be made for G taking this on merit if you ask me. Taking Joshua Dufek as a returning driver may also not be the most inspiring move of all time. The guy was in contention for worst on the grid last year after all, but at least I do think Dufek has a lot more skill than he got to show last season, so this may turn out alright after all. Matthias Stenshorn does come in as the clear favourite for this team and a potential dark horse for the title. His 2024 may have been a little worse than he had hoped for, but I do think he'll be solid at worst and potentially a serial frontrunner if the car allows. And just to showcase the strength of this year's F3 grid, that has been all the glaring weak spots covered already. So let's get straight to the midfield. Van Amersfoort Racing occupies the lowest spot in this competitive tier, primarily because of the lack of a sort of dark horse title contender if you ask me. Santiago Ramos has proven last year that even in the quickest car he is unfortunately not quite up to the task. Yeah, I have been quite disappointed in that regard. And neither even Dominguez nor Teo Final come in with any sort of title expectations. Dominguez has been a rock-solid upper midfielder all his career, but nothing more. If you've never witnessed Teo Final though, you might be in for a treat. The former Spanish F4 champion has got a somewhat unique ability when it comes to picking his way through even the most competitive packs. If you need a guide to pull off a series of overtakes to get the car where it belongs, then he is a brilliant bet. Definitely one that will entertain and hopefully replicate some of the runs we've seen from Leon last year. I have repositioned Campos about 5 times on this list, but they have ended up down here in P6, despite being the only team with a full non-rookie squad. Nikola Tsolov absolutely is a star driver on this level of competition by now, but equally, returning as a third year means he needs to be well in the title fight, if not run away with it outright. Given his consistency issues in the past, this may be too much to ask for from the Bulgarian. I think he'll still comfortably wipe the floor with teammates Mari Boya and Tazin Toprovazek, both of which could be used as an example for the average F3 driver in my opinion. No big issues and will bring home points if the car is up for it, but seeing either of them near the title contention would be a bit of a shock. For what it's worth, Tazin Toprovazek often flies a bit below the radar for his ability for most, so I'd still encourage you to pay some extra attention to him this season. MP Motorsports has once again found an excellent trio of young drivers by pairing Red Bull Junior Tim Tramnitz with Williams driver Alessandro Giusti and Eurocup 3 front-runner Bruno Delpino. Much like last season, this feels incredibly difficult to predict with any accuracy, so naturally I'll be backing the only returning driver Tramnitz for this particular battle, hoping he can insert himself in the title fight, even if I'm not awfully confident in that. Giusti and Delpino have both shown quick adaptability in the past, and I very much hope neither of them get the Kasper Stuke experience from last season. Just to make a call, I'll say Giusti will be second, but honestly I could have also flipped a coin for this one. Rodin is fielding an absolute crack squad of 2 exciting rookies in Louis Sharp and Roman Bielinski, while also bringing one of our key title hopefuls with Callum Voisin, the latter having led Rodin's resurrection last season in the first place. Voisin's fate will mostly depend on the car, but there is a big X factor. If Louis Sharp keeps both his form and ability to quickly adjust to the car, he might be a serious contender for the team lead and by extension could end up in the title hand. Back-to-back titles in British F4 and GB3 have definitely set some high expectations going forward. Roman Bielinski almost looks anonymous compared to those big boy CVs from his English-speaking teammates, but the Pole suffered big time with a car accident last season. His actual on-track performance in 2024 has actually been quite impressive, particularly during his winter campaign. Unfortunately, I think he'll be beaten by both of his teammates, but much like with MP, this isn't a done deal by any means. You can make a solid case for both Rodin and MP to either be a tier up or just in a tier of their own, but hopefully you will understand my sort of separation now that we get to the big players. Call it confirmation bias or just fitting signings from the teams, but it is the elite group of Trident, Prema and ART that have ended up with the best lineups on paper, at least for my money. The fringe case here clearly is Trident. They do bring 2 key title hopefuls in Charlie Wurz and Rafa Camara, while Noah Stromstedt, despite his breakout season in Freca and recent announcement as a Mercedes Junior, would probably be more fitting in the midfield squads, to be entirely honest. Wurz really is the X factor when it comes to making this one of the top 3 lineups this year. If we get a 2023 Freca Wurz, then this team might be closer to the bottom of the midfield. If we get the good Charlie Wurz again, then I do expect the man to leave his mark in the title battle, massively aided by almost exclusively rookie competition in the top teams. Rafa Camara hasn't always adjusted to cars quickly, see his 2023 Freca campaign, but he has had such an amazing form last year that I fully expect him to hit the ground running, hopefully with a year-long title attack as well. Prema has assembled a somewhat surprising lineup by only taking American McLaren junior Ugochukwu from their Freca squad. Ugochukwu is the definition of hit or miss at the moment, but his upside is undeniable. Having found his form again over the winter, I do hope he will be a frontrunner straight away and not have the teething issues we've seen from him at the Formula regional level. Historically, that happens a lot more in Freca anyway than anywhere else. He is joined by fellow McLaren junior Brando Badoea, who has had a mad streak of second places in the FRECA last year and has been really good over the last couple of seasons in general. This will be a true test for him, as I think he has never had the same level of expectations around him before. Last but not least, Noel Leon will bring much needed experience to the team and will be one of the most obvious title contenders this season, much like for Tsolov or Wurz. If he doesn't at least get close to the championship, then this campaign will be a failure. Given Hugo's issues in the past, I do think Leon will have the upper hand in this team, and I could see Hugo beaten by Badoea as well. He just strikes me as the kind of guy who might need a second year. Nevertheless, expect good drives from all three of these drivers. And finally, a bit to my own surprise, ART has taken the top spot on this list for me. This comes down to two key factors. Tuukka Taponen being the most exciting of an excellent rookie class, and James Wharton actually getting the better of Ugochukwu last season, to most people's surprise. I've said in the past, I somehow have a bit of a blind spot for Laurens Vanopen and thus struggle to actually see him in title contention somehow, even though if we look at his career objectively, then this is anything but out of the question as well. And I'd hope to see him scrap for wins, especially in the early part of the year. If James Wharton continues his form from last season, he could be a bit of a dark horse, but the real final boss in this squad is of course the Finnish tiger Tuukka Taponen. It never feels fair to predict a rookie as the overall champion, but I'll happily accept that the likes of Tsolov, Voisin, Leon or Wurz could make use of the expert experience to run away with it. But I'd be shocked if we end the year without Taponen in the conversation, and gun to my head, I think I would actually just predict him to take it all. Kid has always had an aura around him ever since his ominous appearance on the international karting scene years ago. And he most definitely doesn't struggle to pick up new machinery. Case in point, his F3 cameo last year, where he outqualified both of his teammates, if I remember correctly. But I know a lot of people will disagree with that one, and naturally so. Objectively looking, this championship really is pretty wide open. Much like in F2, the huge wave of promotions towards F1 and other professional opportunities is certainly felt on this grid as well. So please go ahead and drop your predictions down in the comments. Who will win? Who will be in contention? And what team or driver did I criminally underrate this time around? And in case this was your first time on the channel, I am covering all the feeder series action on a weekly basis, so if you want to stay on top of all the different competitions with young drivers racing and engage in some of the discussion along the way, you may want to consider subscribing to the channel. Otherwise, I thank you all for watching and I do hope to catch you in the next one.